stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we'll provide an opportunity to address the commission by employees or others concerning items that are on the agenda.
You gonna do a roll call first?
Yeah. I'm so sorry. My apologies. We'll do a roll call.
Jared Rickey.
Here.
Michael Newstrom.
Here.
Harold Curry.
Here.
Judith Simeon.
Here.
Lenore Feeney. Here. And Jason Henry.
Here. We have to add that as an agenda item so I don't forget it. All right. Now, we'll move to item number 3. The opportunity to address the commission by employees or others concerning items that are on the agenda.
Good morning. I think some of the folk are going to take a break today. Oh, Robert Burns. Oh,
No, I just didn't mention your name.
oh okay. Robert Burns. Since I think a few of the folk will take a break today, I'm going to try to take up a little bit of the slack. Everything I'm going to discuss is going to be focused on item number 4. I realize that item number 5 is an individual item when we get to it. So, but with regard to item number 4, in some ways it's very difficult for me to believe that I've only been attending these meetings for 1 year, just calendar year 2017, because there have been unbelievable events that have transpired just during that 1 year. But even prior to me coming, I know this was an issue of contention, and from my vantage point, it's long since ago time for a written report to have been issued. I know you pressed for it back in June or July, referencing Chairman Simeon. I made a public records request, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. They said there was no responsive report. I think that this board has a firm obligation to sue Taylor Townsend for breach of contract for failure to produce that written report. And I realize that's going to put each one of you in a precarious position, because then you're in a position of having to sue the head of the political action committee who headed John Bell Edwards, the current governor who appointed you, headed his super PAC. That's one of the problems about first, hiring a political hack to do this. I mean, I'm not one that tends to bite my words or mince them in any way. It is what it is. The decision was made to hire him. He didn't issue a written report. Your own legal counsel has said repeatedly that he was under an obligation to issue it. It's way since past time. I'm going on the premise you still don't have one. If I'm incorrect on that, anybody can feel free to interject. But I think there's a reason that he doesn't want to issue it. But I think the fiduciary obligation of this board is to hold his feet to the fire and demand that it be issued. And then if he's not going to, and it appears he's not, it's time to sue him for breach of contract. So that'll pretty well conclude my public comment. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to address you. Appreciate you placing item number 5 on the agenda, and I'll look forward to the opportunity to present it as it comes to you on the agenda. Thank you so much.
Just as a matter of clarification of the facts, well, not clarification, but confirmation, as we do not have a hearing. Obviously, you've given us your views on that issue. I'm not commenting on it. I'm not endorsing or opposing your views, but I just want to make it clear that I just wanted to give you a response to the question that you raised.
Sounds fair.
Item number 4, consideration of November 9, 2017 minutes. Anyone have any comment? Well, we have a motion to approve the minutes, and then if there are any changes, we can address that after we have a motion. Any comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from November 9, 2017, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, in the matter of David Easley, that was a matter where we had a hearing on last time, and we had moved and to consider the matter, to continue considering the matter at this particular meeting. We will be discussing allegations of misconduct by Mr. Easley. We provided notice of the intent to go into executive session. We can only do so following a meeting and following a vote of the members. And the minutes must reflect who voted for and who voted against such a motion. So is there anyone who would like to make that motion?
Move it. Second.
Okay. To make it easier for the person taking the minutes, we'll do it by roll call rather than a voice vote so that you can record by name.
Okay. Eula Simeon,
Yes.
Michael Newstrom,
Yes.
Howard Perry,
Yes.
and Jared Ricky.
Yes.
Okay. See, rules are not clear, so whether we need a vote to come back into session, but just for the sake of simplicity, we'll entertain a motion to come back into session.
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're back in session. We're here in the matter of David Easley, docket number 1723S. And currently pending is the appeal of Mr. Easley. I'm sorry, Trooper Easley.
It's 233.
Did I mistake that?
You just missed one correct.
I'm sorry. Docket numbers 17233S.
I'll move to deny the relief of appeal. Second.
Okay. Let's take a roll call vote for the
What
Easley
was the motion, please? I didn't.
to deny the relief sought in the appeal. Is that a correct statement of your motion?
Yes, sir.
We'll take a roll call vote, so it's for ease of recording the votes.
Okay. Eula Simeon,
Yes.
Michael Newstrom.
Yes.
Howard Perry,
Yes.
and Jared Ricky.
Yes.
Okay, unanimously, the ayes have it. The relief sought in the appeal is denied. Okay, the next item on the agenda is oral argument by counsel related to the briefs on the matter to consolidate in regards to the appeals of Thurman D. Miller, Darrell Williams, and Rodney Hyatt. The motion was filed by you, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Why don't you identify yourself, since we all know you, but just identify yourself, correct?
Floyd Falcon on behalf of Thurman Miller, Darrell Williams, and Rodney Hyatt.
Michelle Terroir on behalf of the Office of State Police.
I want to start off by saying that clearly how y'all proceed and handle this as consolidated, non-consolidated, and so forth is purely discretionary, and I recognize that. I would just like to share with you the concept that a substantial portion of the allegations in the three cases have a common thread. Darrell Williams has one additional charge that's not relevant to the other two people, but the substance of the appeals relate to the trip to San Diego to attend a convention, all riding in the same vehicle to and from that convention, and so forth.
As I read the brief submitted by the department, I didn't see a real, obviously they're not conceding it, but I didn't see a real strong argument against the consolidation, but there was other issues that were raised relative to sequestration of witnesses.
This is my thought. Let me, I've been doing this a long time with the state police. I don't really even remember how many years, maybe 17, 18 years, something like that. In the past, we've had, and this I think one of the most serious issues, in the past, we've had hearings where the commission would meet one day a month, and we'd have a 3-day hearing, and it would take 3 or 4 months to complete that hearing. And every time you'd have to prepare, and you'd prepare 3 times for the continuation of the hearing. The justice was not served by, even in one time Michelle and I were talking, there was a case involving one of the pilots, and it was over 3 months, but there were a couple of months, 3 hearing days, there was a couple of months the hearing got canceled or something happened and we didn't have a quorum. We had different people at each hearing. For instance, today we don't have 7 people. You know, the hearing started, we didn't have a consistency. We only had a couple of people that attended all 3 sessions, and it was a disaster. And I just would like to impress upon y'all that was unfair to the appellants. I think it's unfair to everybody. Frankly, I think it's unfair to the commission members. The idea was, well, there was going to be transcripts prepared, and everybody would review the transcripts before the decision was rendered. I guess that happened, but I got to tell you, you know, if you have 3 days of transcript, 3 days of hearing, you're not listening to the witnesses. You're not, you know, one of the triers of fact, one of the things that they're supposed to do is evaluate the credibility of the witnesses and so forth. This isn't a court of appeal where credibility has already made it a decision. So we think that's a real issue I'd like y'all to consider. Another issue I'd like to...
So your concern is if we don't consolidate, you might have different compositions of the commission at the different hearings.
Well, actually, even if you don't consolidate, I don't think we can finish any one case in one day. Right. That's my concern. You see, you're not going to consider any. So let me give you a worst case scenario. In February we have the first day of a trial of Mr. Miller. In March we have the second day. Then in April we have the first day of Darrell Williams' trial, and we spread this out over 6 months. I mean, that's the worst case scenario, and I'll suggest that. So I'm hoping y'all would consider scheduling some days back to back. I would hope you would consider the consolidation. I don't see, Michelle raised the Office of State Police raised an issue about sequestration. I mean, I don't see sequestration as being a big issue, to tell you the truth. These 3 people have a right to hear. If we only consolidated parts of the trial, they have a right to be in every part of the trial.
Well, but that, although it's an issue that was raised, there's not currently a motion pending relative to that issue of sequestration.
Right.
I think it was simply raised so as not to waive their right to be able to assert that. That is not currently pending before us.
I agree. You know, another issue I'd like y'all to consider is this. So I'm gonna subpoena all the same documents in all 3 cases. The rules only require to bring the documents to the hearing. Now, frankly, in cooperation with the Office of State Police, I usually get them a few days in advance. There's going to be a whole lot of documents in this case. I'm imagining a couple of 100 pages or so. I understand it's listening to the tapes of the various statements might take 10, 12 hours or so. We need to get that, whatever it is, we need to get it in advance. Now, if I only get it in advance in one case, then the guy whose appeal is second is going to have a serious advantage over the fellow whose appeal was first, because we've heard the testimony. It's like if we were taking discovery and we were getting all of the documents and evidence, and we only get it in the first case, and the second and third people have an advantage because we had it in advance. I mean, it's the same. I'm representing all 3 of them, so it's the same. So it would be a disadvantage to the other people, or the person that had to go first.
But not to cut you short, Mr. Popper, we could get to the gist of this. If you don't mind, I'll ask the department a question relative to.
Yeah, I think I said everything I wanted to say in my motion, frankly, and I think it's clear.
As I read your motion, as I read your opposition, obviously don't concede the consolidation, but your more serious issues are raised relative to some other procedural aspects that are not currently before the board because there's not a motion pending on those. What is the department's position, without waiving any other objections you might have relative to whether these should be consolidated?
Well, as we pointed out, some aspects of these three cases are the same. Certainly to the extent the three individuals were in the same vehicle traveling the same route, those facts are the same. There are facts in between the travel days, as well as what they did afterwards, that are going to be separate and apart. I don't know if that requires consolidation or if that, as I stated, maybe some stipulations of fact that would be consistent in each of the three cases would work it out. We want the most efficient trial that there is, not just for the appellants, but for the agency also. We don't want you guys to have to sit through the recitation of consistent facts in the three cases 3 different times. I will agree with Mr. Falcon that it just really doesn't lend itself to divide these cases up, whether you consolidate them or not, over numerous months. I mean, you lose that information and everything, so regardless of how long each one takes individually, or if you consolidate them, it takes to hear it all together. You know, we would like to have each one or all of them together tried over a period of time. That would be sufficient to hear the case.
Any responses?
Nothing else. No, my two main issues are not splitting them up and getting the documents in advance in order to prepare sufficiently, because it's going to be a voluminous.
Relative to not splitting them up, that's what's before us right now, and we will vote on that if the commission is ready to vote on it. Getting the documents in advance, if you want to file a motion relative to that, if we have jurisdiction to consider that, then we'll make that decision at that time. But the only thing right now in consideration is the motion to consolidate.
I'll make the motion to consolidate. Second.
Okay, any discussion of the motion?
So what's the net effect of that? What does that mean?
They'll all be tried together. Tried, not the right word. There'll be a single hearing where all three, the evidence on all three will be presented. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The matter will be consolidated, reserving the rights of the parties, both sides, to file other procedural issues to bring before the commission.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so we're not going to try and set a time now.
We have to consult our calendars, but because there is some sympathy, I can only speak for myself, there is some, but I think there would be sympathy to try all of this in a single setting rather than to try it, that's my personal view. But we have to obviously consult calendars before we can make that call.
And we have an absent commissioner that's not sworn in yet. You know,
Sure.
My goal, quite honestly, is going to be to get with the other commissioners and let's carve off a week. You know, at least try and get 5 days in a row that we can try and work our way through this. I mean, we hear what you say. We've talked individually, you know, 1 or 2 at a time. We agree with what you're saying. To sit here and try and break this up over the next 6, 7 months, 1 day a month, it's ludicrous.
It was disastrous, I can tell you.
So,
It was disastrous.
I think the goal, you know, speaking for myself, I think the goal would be to try and, you know, set aside, you know, 4 or 5 days, or maybe 3 days in the following week, 3 days or something along those lines. Once y'all tell us how long it's going to be.
You know, we've often done that by meeting with Ms. Freeney. And that's worked out when we had y'all dates, but I mean, we also pretty much need to do it in consolidation with everybody, because I'm sure Mr. Simeon, I'm sure everybody here has a schedule,
Sure.
and getting everybody on one page. I got a couple 3 cases in federal court coming up this spring, and they don't listen to you too much over there. They just tell you when to come. You know, so.
Well, bear with us, but know that that's what our goal would be, to try and carve off several days in contiguous weeks to try and do this.
Thank you, sir.
To highlight what you just said, I just got a notice from the Federal Fifth Circuit that told me the week in which my argument will be held, not the day. And then they told me, and you can move to have it on another time if you have an irreconcilable conflict. But the fact that you're supposed to be in another court is not an irreconcilable conflict for us.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Livingston, you know, in Livingston Parish, they tell you, set aside this week. Well,
but there will be consideration with that, with some sympathies towards the issues that you brought.
thank you, sir.
We have to get a calendar together.
Thank you.
Okay, item, number 4, item 4, in the matter of the investigation of LSTA political contributions, docket number 16221-1. There is an indication on the agenda that we may consider executive session to discuss the investigation pending the proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct. If we have a motion, we'll take that motion. And second? Why don't you take a roll vote?
Okay, it'll be Julie Simeon,
Yes.
Michael Newstrom,
Yes.
Howard Perry,
Yes.
and Jared Reed.
Yes.
We will go into executive. Well, first we need a motion.
So moved. Second.
All righty. Roll call vote, please, on coming back into regular session.
Okay, Julie Simeon,
Yes.
Michael Newstrom.
Yes.
Howard Perry,
Yes.
and Jared Reed.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, we're back in session. It is 10:27, and we're here to discuss in the matter of investigation of LSTA political contributions, docket number 16221-4. We would entertain a motion to defer this matter for further consideration at the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so it will be on the agenda for the next meeting for further discussion. Right, the next item on the agenda is 5, the presentation proposal of a video recorder to videotape all LSPC meetings. And Mr. Burns has requested the opportunity to speak on that. And not to cut you short, Mr. Burns, but there is some additional information we would like to provide you and the rest of the people in the audience relative to the steps that we are looking at doing.
Before or during?
Let's just tell you where we are, that may affect some of you.
Sure, so you're gonna say that before I do the?
If you don't mind.
No, that'd be great. Would you mind if I went ahead and turned it and then I'll wait till
You might want to start with Jason because he's going to be the first one to report on our discussions with our future landlord as to what we're trying to get.
Okay, but y'all are okay with me staying here until such time as y'all have
Oh,
concluded?
yes, sir, yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, just as we look at our options, as we look at the facility that we're currently in for our future meetings, we are understanding that the audio-visual capabilities, or especially the audio capabilities, are soon to be upgraded, and we are also looking at the possibility of our future landlord providing the possibility of video capture capabilities. So that is part of the process as we look to relocate here, and it might be very beneficial for us to have those capabilities.
Just don't give them the heads up that we're about to ask for something else. In addition to that, Jason is going to be having a budget meeting with the Commission Administration, and one of the items that we will be looking at in that budget is whether or not we can get funds available to proceed with the audio-visual, the recording of our meetings. So certainly we want to hear what you have to say, but I just wanted to pass that on.
I appreciate you doing so. All right, that's it, that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I won't take up much time then because from what I heard, I view that favorably. So
You should.
I'll just say that I did bring a videographer if y'all want to ask him any question. this has been done by the Auctioneers Licensing Board for about 4.5 years now, partially as a result of the fact that I was videotaping, and they just felt it was beneficial to have the entirety of the meetings. They say I selectively edit a few things that cause different viewpoints, so, and that's fair. You know, the news media, they're not going to give you the entirety. Nobody's going to watch the entirety on some things. So, but clearly the demand is there. I mean, when Trooper Easley had his hearing, you know, there were over 100 hits to it, over 100 views, literally within 24 hours. So I think there is a demand for utilizing, being able to see these things from a remote location. I think the interest will be strong. Nobody knows who's watching. And also, as I said, and I'm going to wrap it up, I don't know whether the upcoming hearings or any other ones will end up in the First Circuit Court of Appeals. I know there was at least one instance from about 3.5 or 4 years ago. The trooper's last name started with an M, but I'm sorry, I can't remember it now, that did wind up at the First Circuit Court of Appeals. And I would figure that it's going to make it much easier if you're going to have a court transcript prepared after the fact. Because I know the LALB once did this when they just gave them, here's the recording. The court reporter has no idea who the people are. Very difficult to ascertain who said what when, because y'all are pretty respectful of one another, and there's very few interruptions of one speaking over the other. I know a couple of times there's been a little heated exchange where that happened, but by and large, you've been very respectful of one another. That wasn't the case. The Auctioneers Licensing Board, and the transcript was a nightmare. And so the cost of having to go in and edit and re-edit to get it all straightened out was fairly high. But beyond that, I just think video adds so much more to an experience than just audio. I know Commissioner Rickey, you once said it was very advantageous for you to be able to go back and look at a prior meeting's video of a meeting that you weren't able to attend. And I just think it would, in the interest of transparency, when, you know, the Colonel just said, we're in our darkest days. I think shedding light and providing transparency would be favorably viewed. I know I would view it favorably. I think a number of troopers would view it favorably. So if you can do it by way of in-house and save some money, I'm all for that too, because I'm a cheapskate, just like most auctioneers are. That's why we hire the cheapest one, or they hire the cheapest one. So that's about all I got to say. But if y'all can get it incorporated in-house and save funds even that way, hey, I'm all for that. Hopefully you won't feel like you wasted a trip if that turns out to be the case, but yeah, all right, that's me.
So what we'll do is, after we have more information on these other potential options, we'll put it on the agenda for discussion at a future date.
Sounds great.
Okay, any other commission business? That's item 6 under number 4. That was it. Any other business?
Yeah. And then,
Well, we'll move to item 5 then, directly.
yes, just a few items on my director's report. The first would be to officially, for the record at this meeting, announce that Sergeant Jeffrey Foss has won the special election to be the classified employee member of the State Police Commission. The ballots were counted on November 29th. The Elections Division of the Secretary of State present, as well as the representatives of the candidates. And I put out a general circular, number 189, on November 30th, officially proclaiming Jeffrey Foss the winner of the election. The requirements in the election code for the waiting period for contest of election has passed. I'm looking forward to getting word from the Secretary of State that the results have officially been promulgated as per statute, and we should have Mr. Foss join us in our January meeting. And then the follow-up to that is the other vacancy we have on the commission. It's my understanding, in speaking with Dan Sullivan with the Louisiana Civil Service League, that the letter of nominees has been generated and is in the mail to governors, boards, and commissions for consideration. And with any luck, we'll have our 7th member potentially by January. might not be till February. We'll know soon. The other item I have would be tab 6 in your binders. That would be the expenditures so far. This is the expenditures encumbered and expended to date in various categories. And as the chairman mentioned, I have a meeting set with Commissioner Administration at the Division Administration on Monday to discuss fiscal year 18-19, which encapsulates our increase for purposes of our rental agreement for this facility. And then the one just note, on October 24th, I issued a general circular outlining the 2018 meeting days for the commission, again keeping the second Thursday of the month as scheduled, and that has been published, and I believe our next meeting will be January 11th, but at 1 p.m. is the tentative date for our January 11th meeting. We'll publish that as well. And that's all from the direction.
Item 6 on the agenda is an opportunity to address the commission concerning items that were discussed but not previously listed on the agenda for which prior comment was not received. Unless someone indicates otherwise, I did not note that we discussed any items that were not on the agenda, but if someone has a different view, they can let us know. All right, hearing none, then there's nothing at this point. So we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move, check.
All in favor?
Aye.